Okay, so today we're going to be going over an ASR2 sector assessment. So we're going to take you from beginning to end, and we're going to walk you through the whole thing. So we're going to initiate and make sure that we have, make sure everybody understands the definition. ASR2s are conducted, Lima may or may not have sectorized and started this process prior to you arriving. So it may be up to your USAR team to do this. It's usually done closely behind the ASR level 1, just a wide area assessment, and actually at times it could be actually being done simultaneously. If it hasn't been done, the first incoming team should make efforts to work with the Lima and come up with either a sectorized area or a means of dividing this up into manageable segments. It's usually carried out, the ASR2 is usually a small mobile assessment search team that's going to go out, do the quick evaluation. You could have multiple teams going out to do an area assessment. If you do that, you want to make sure that you divide it up and give them blocks of Worksite Triage IDs. So one team going out, obviously you go one and on. If you're going to have multiples, maybe you might do it in 25 increments or 50, whatever you come up with. But you might want to do that prior to sending out teams. If you use dogs, technical search, it might depend on the situation, but just know that will actually slow the process down, and just be ready for additional work if you come across it. Prior to departing, you're going to brief your team. Things you want to review real quick before departing ASR2. We have a definition of that. Like I said, it's the main purpose is to identify specific viable live rescue sites. You want to be able to prioritize. That's what the A through F is. We'll get into that a little bit later. It's usually fast-paced because you want to get the entire sector. You want eyes on it as quickly as possible. The information from the local population and responders is very valuable, and you want to make sure you get that information as you go through this assessment. Building triage is a must if you want to help prioritize. That's a easy way to put all your triage work sites together once you get back to your base of operations and prioritize them. Usually you don't conduct rescues in this operation, but if you do, you'll also want to make sure you know what you're going to do with your live victims as you remove them prior to leaving. And if you do, just know you're going to be getting into an ASR level 3, possibly 4. If you do that, you want to make sure, and if you're going to stop your assessment and start working on a work site, you have to make sure that area assessment, the ASR2, is finished and conducted by somebody else from your team. Now we're going to review triage category. So this is what I call the long math of triage category. So this would actually give you the full definition of how you would actually go through a matrix of how to get to your A through F. For some, this might be a little difficult to learn, but it does take some time. And like I said, this is what I call the long math. What we'll do right now is we'll just real quick get into what I like to call the short math of it. If you look at your worksite triage form, on there you have the A through F boxes. It actually breaks it down for you on how to actually, like what I call short math, to get to your A through F. So we're going to go ahead and focus on this portion of the worksite triage form, and this is actually going to help you get through your A through F much easier. So let's start with the horizontal rows. On top we see confirmed live victims. This is our number one priority. These are people that we know are alive, that are viable rescues. So this is someone I could see, I can touch, I can communicate with. However you've determined that this person is truly alive and still in this collapsed structure, triage category A and B are the two top priorities. Now we'll talk about the two bottom rows, and we'll talk about them together. They're very similar in nature. So unknown victims are either there's a building that's collapsed, I know there's people inside, but I cannot confirm they're alive. Or let's say you're at a supermarket and I don't know who was in this building prior to the collapse. So not knowing whether there's people in there or not, or whether you know they're there, but I don't know they're alive. Those two are the two rows on the bottom are very similar. The difference now is you'll see unknown big voids. If you consider a big void a void you could crawl through, and small voids being voids that you cannot crawl through. Those are the two different. So if you have unknown victims, big voids, it's in that second row. If it's unknown victims, small voids, it's going to be on that bottom row. So now let's look at the vertical columns. Level 3, rapid search and rescue needed, and level 4, full search and rescue needed. We're always going to recommend you go to the NSERA guidelines to view the full definition of each, but we're going to kind of abbreviate things for you. So if we can envision at level 3 being anything that's going to be one operational period or a medium type work. Level 4, we're going to say it's a heavy team or a multi-operational period. So if you can envision each of those columns in those fashions, it's going to help you quickly determine the proper triage category. So to summarize, the rows are going to give you victim status and survivability, and the columns are going to give you type and duration of work that's anticipated at that work site. So now let's go through and simulate a couple instances. Let's say we come upon a structure that has confirmed live victims, voices are heard, and I can see that this is a medium type or one operational period. So we're going to go confirm live victims, level 3, because I know that's a medium or one operational period, and I can come up with the determination that this is a triage category A. Now we'll say we came upon a structure where there's people, we know there's people in the building, but nobody's been in communication. We have not been able to determine if they're alive, and the voids are very small. We'll say it's a pancake collapse. So this is a unknown victims, small voids. So we'll start with that row. Now we'll go over to the columns. This is a heavy reinforced concrete. I know this is going to be a heavy team or a multi-operational period. So I'm going to go with level 4. And when I cross those two, I can determine that this is a triage category F. So now we're going to get into the worksite marking itself. So we're going to quickly break this down. This is a completed worksite marking. So just remember that line through the center is upon completion, when there are no more live or any more rescues that need to be performed at that worksite. So this is a totally complete one. But we're going to just go through this from top to bottom. Worksite ID B26, that's what we've come up with. Team ID, your Olympic team code, your classified team ID behind that, or non-classified team will be 10 and above. What level was completed, what ASR level when you were at that building, the date, triage category, hazards, and when you're done with this entire worksite, when it's totally complete, that's when you put this line through, and that's the completion line. So we want to make sure your Disaster Surveyor's app is loaded, it's updated, and you are logged in, ready to go. So we're going to quickly go through how to create a worksite triage form. We have other tutorials available for you to give you more details. We're just going to really quickly go through how to create a worksite triage form. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go through, and we're going to be using pre-populated forms just to expedite this tutorial. But what we'll do is we'll touch on the worksite triage button on the home screen. You'll see two of the buttons, either upload or new form. We'll touch on new form as if we're going to create a new form. But I'm going to close this and go back. We're actually going to use one of the already created forms. So I'm going to touch on this first one. And this is all the information's already been populated. We recommend that you go to the other tutorials. There's a triage form tutorial, it'll give you more details on how to fill out the forms properly. But this is one that I've already filled out. It's going to save a few minutes. Remember, you can touch this top button where it says marking. It'll show you what your search marking is going to look like. You have photos, you have your camera. If you have photos of the building, you can touch on the icon. So this is all just reminders, but once again, if you want to have a better, more in-depth tutorial of the triage form, we recommend you go to the triage tutorial that we have posted. So we're going to go ahead and close that out, and we're ready to start our assessment. So remember, if you do have a data connection, it's recommended you upload your triage forms as you progress through your ASR2 assessment. If you have satellite connectivity, maybe you might want to batch them up and do batches at a time. Timely uploads will allow for your base of operations to get an opportunity to start the ASR 3 and 4 process. So what they're going to do is start prioritizing, coming up with areas that you could have actually rescue teams go out and start doing rescue operations. And just remember, as a doomsday clause, just say there is no cellular connectivity, you don't have any satellite availability. You could use one tablet as your master management and share all your information to it, to one tablet, and do that. Obviously, it's recommended you have connectivity and you actually use the website to help manage, but that is a option for you if need be. As best practice, before you head out, we recommend that you start a trek set. And so when you start your tracks, you'll open up your GPS, and we'll show you how to do that. We'll walk through that real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my Disaster Surveyor app. I'm going to hit the GPS icon, and what I'm going to do is on the bottom left, it says Tracks On. I'm just going to go ahead and click the Tracks On button. That's going to start my track set. As I progress through my assessment, if I'm going to be paused for any lengthy period of time, I could touch on that green Tracks On button and it will pause it, and then I can unpause it when I start walking around again. So when you're completed, you'll hit the either save track, or you can always reset it if you wanted to reset and not save it. But we're going to go ahead and just say we progress through. We're going to show you what that, starting that, and now we'll hit the save track. It's going to come up on top as your most recent track set saved. You can hit the change or edit your track set name button, so you can edit it and name it to whatever you'd like. So it could be sector A assessment, or whatever you may call it. Once you save it, you could either upload it if you have connectivity, or you can wait till you get back to your base of operations to upload it at a later time. So we'll go ahead and progress. Now you're ready to head out. We turned our trek set on. We're going to head out to our first building. We come to this building and we see it's obviously a very large building, and it will be a heavy type teamwork. So I'll give me as a surveyor, I'll give it my Worksite ID, which is one of which we came up with. So we'll give our teammate the ID number. We'll give him hazards as electrical. We'll put our team ID, what we did, ASR2, the date we did it, and the triage category B. So we're going to go through real quick. I'm going to pull up one of our pre-populated triage worksite forms, and we'll show you what it was. So we did that. We quickly filled out our triage form. We marked the building. Now it's time to move on. So we come across our next potential worksite. Since we're simulating all of our 3 worksites we're surveying today have confirmed live victims, we'll say this one's a triage category A. We'll go through and quickly fill out our triage form. Just as a reminder, as you progress through your sector assessment, as you create your worksite triage forms or come across waypoints that you've dropped, you want to make sure you upload those to the server, so that way your base of operations can initiate a plan of action as soon as possible. Another benefit may be your team could actually initiate rescue operations on a priority worksite that you may have come across through your sector assessment. So make sure that you upload frequently and as often as possible, as there's many great benefits for your team and the people you're there to help. And we'll review the worksite marking. So remember, worksite ID, this is an actual marking. Your hazard, go on top, team ID, level performed, day and month, and the triage category. So we're ready to move on. Come upon this building. This is going to be a heavy type building. We're going to mark it, and we're going to create a triage form and try to get moving on as quickly as possible. So I'm going to start the triage form. We're going to go ahead and put it together, and this is obviously a category B. I have the worksite triage ID. I have all the information already pre-populated in this form that I created for this worksite, And if you ever want to just ensure you're putting the right worksite marking, you could go to the marking icon, just a reminder, on your Disaster Surveyor app, and you'll be able to see what your worksite marking will look like. So as you fill out your form, once it's completed, you can touch on that marking and it will show you what your worksite ID should be. If it's not enough information to create a worksite ID, it actually will let you know in the app, and it will remind you and highlight in red the few things you need to do prior to having a sample worksite marking. So we had that sample I showed you. Now here it is. I showed my teammate. He actually went up, sprayed it on the building, and did it in the 1 meter box. We're ready to move on. So now we're going to say we came across a building that's damaged, and it is confirmed that all the occupants are out. So either they're out front or they have a neighbor. Somebody's in the vicinity that says there is nobody in here. So we want to put a rapid clearance marking on this building and buildings like this, because if a rescue team comes later on down the line, they're going to think this is a potential work site, and there may not be anybody around that can confirm no one's inside. So, and also just as a note, you can know that, and those of you who've been out in the disaster area, it has been found that buildings are weakened during the initial major earthquake, and then after the fact, with aftershocks, is when a lot of the buildings actually fall. So that is a potential where you're going to come across a lot of buildings that are collapsed but have nobody inside. So we're going to go through right now on how to actually do a rapid clearance marking, and we're going to drop a waypoint just as a documentation trail of what we've done during our ASR2. So we're going to have our rescuer get out. He's going to do the diamond, rapid clearance diamond with the clear inside of it. He's going to put a team ID and a date below it, and then we're going to actually go in and we're actually going to create a waypoint, and you'll see how we utilize this waypoint later on in the assessment. What we're going to do is we're going to open up your Disaster Surveyor app. We're going to hit the GPS once again, and when you have that GPS open, you'll see the bottom right says Mark Waypoint. So we'll hit the Mark Waypoint. You'll see the icons that are available to you. The clearance diamond up there, we'll touch the clear diamond. At this point, you can take a picture, add a picture of the building. You can add notes if you'd like to add notes, and at this point, you're done. You'll hit the save button up on the top right corner, and it'll take you back to be able to drop more icons if you'd like, or you hit done and you go back to the GPS main page, and you can go back to your Disaster Surveyor homepage at that point. So now let's say you came across a deceased victim. So it's a deceased only. So once again, we want to mark it, we want to document it, and we want to move on as quick as possible. So you're going to have your rescuer get out. He's going to put a rapid clearance marking with the diamond with the D for deceased only. You're going to have your team ID and date once again, and now we're going to go through and we're actually going to create a quick waypoint. So once again, I'll just go quickly through it. GPS, mark waypoint. I'm going to hit the deceased diamond, and I'm going to hit save. Unless you want to add a picture to it, you can, but at this point we're not going to add any pictures to it. So now let's say you progressed on through your assessment and you came across some humanitarian need that you see out there. So you are the valid rescuer eyes that are out there in the field, and typically unfortunately the natural disaster turns into a humanitarian disaster that'll need attention. So we want to try to get ahead of the curve as quickly and get the help these people need as quickly as possible. So you come across this area as you're doing your assessment, and I see that there's a humanitarian need. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my GPS, and I'm going to mark the waypoint, and right here it looks like we need some shelter. You can take a photo again if you'd like to take a quick photo, and then we're going to hit save, and it's going to go ahead and save that waypoint for us. Then I'm going to go ahead and we're going to add on there that there's water and sanitation also needed, and hit the save button, and that's it. You've already saved your icons and you're ready to move on. So now you're back at your command tent and we're ready to do an overview. So we're going to use our sector, your team leader or his or her designee is going to create a sector form. So now we're going to open up your Disaster Surveyor app again, and we're going to walk you through how to create a sector form. So you'll go to your home page and you hit the sector assessment button. In this view, you're going to see basic information. It's going to have your date and time that'll get pre-populated. You're going to have your report number, so it'll be obviously report number 1, the sector that you're doing the assessment on, city if you have a city. You'll hit your start GPS and your end GPS. Below that, you have some areas where you can put some notes, whether you saw some health needs, shelter needs, food nutrition, water sanitation, or logistical needs out there in the field as you were doing your assessment. You'll put who it's graded by, your title position, and now what we're going to do is we're going to show you how you can quickly add your assessment to this form. So you're going to hit the Worksites button. On the top you'll see Add Worksites and Add Waypoints. We're going to hit Add Worksites. We're going to click on the worksites that we came across. So I have B27, 26, and 25. I'm going to click all 3 of those for this sector assessment that we just did. Hit the back button. Now you'll see all those have been attached to this form. We're going to touch on the Waypoints button, and these are things we saw in the field as we were there. We saw the food and nutrition, we had the deceased, some shelter, water, nutrition, we had a cleared building. We're going to add those to the sector assessment, and now you can see all of those added to your sector form. We'll hit the back button. At this point you'll have everything filled out. You're going to hit the closed, and now you have that sector form available and ready to upload to the server as soon as you have connectivity. So once again, you're back at the booth. You go ahead and upload that form. You'll check off any of them. If you had multiple sectors, obviously you do check them all, but typically you'll have one sector you're going to be assigned. So check that one off, upload it to the server, and now your sector assessment has been submitted to your team base of operations. Your team management will have a all-encompassing general sector assessment, so they can actually have an idea of what's going on. You could, at this point, we have some outputs. So you're going to have your level 2 assessment report. That's the one we just created. It will help your base of operations and or the USAR coordination cell, sector coordination cell, or the OSOC, whoever's running this disaster, give them a chance to start coming up with a plan of action. You're going to start possibly assigning USAR teams to work sites at this point. You'll have further requests needed. It'll be able to give you an idea if the resources incoming will be sufficient or if additional resources will be needed. Make sure all this stuff is ready and coordinated, and make sure that summary reports are submitted to who's requesting it, whether it be local emergency management agency or internationally classified teams running the USAR coordination cell. Well, that's going to conclude our sector assessment ASR level 2 training for today. Please feel free to reach out if you have any other training needs or video tutorials that you'd like to see in the near future. Have a great day and be safe out there.